County is the largest county in the state that doesn't have some single-member districts. It's a tendency for all the bigger counties to have some single members because it's such a large area to campaign in. But the 4 and 3 is one that I particularly liked. It didn't get the necessary 10 votes out of 15 to go to the Board of Commissioners. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean this proposal that's before them now couldn't be amended. I've talked to the county attorney's office, and they believe that it can be. So the nice thing about 4 and 3 is that you've got the chairman and the vice chairman elected countywide, so you have that broad perspective that's brought to the commission, and yet each voter in the county votes for 4 out of the 7 members. They vote for their district person and 3 at-large people. So they have the ability to influence the overall makeup of that significantly of the board.
So when the single-member district referendum question goes to the county commission, and if you're not a county commissioner, then how will you?
I plan on testifying that day, and I've talked to some of the commissioners already about that. It's a public hearing.
Okay, but what will you tell them?
I'll encourage them to go with the 4 and 3. I think it's a good compromise. You got some of them that don't want to change at all. They want to stay at large, and you got some of them that want to go all single member. I think it's a false choice, and I'd like to see them go with the hybrid approach. And as I say, I've talked to some of them. I think there's some interest in that.
I'm fascinated for 2 reasons. The 4 and 3 idea is new to me, and the second reason is that your organization is so wired and so well informed and so well connected throughout Lee County that it seemed to me as if you enjoyed having influence in 5 races, and this would in effect dilute your clout.
No, and you're absolutely right. They've all always listened to us in that sense.
For good reason, because you're informed.
But I do think that we'd still have the kind of responsiveness that we want, even though, I mean, you would have 3 at-large people. You'd have your own person. You'd have 3 others that would not be from your district. I think that kind of structure is likely to lead to a broader perspective because the leadership has that broader perspective. I think the mixture of the 2 is very catalytic.
Well, one of those 3 districts would probably be in the southern county.
Oh yeah,
Estero, Bonita.
No question. And it increases the ability of people to participate, as candidates. And it takes the special interests, it reduces their ability to control matters. When you're running countywide, you need a lot of money. It hasn't had much impact, frankly, in the last few years, but
not yet.
Not yet, but it certainly can. And so I think we'll do fine with that system. Be my guess.
Another issue the county commission is going to be petitioned for a referendum on is whether Estero, however you define the Estero area, should be allowed to vote on whether it's a straw ballot on incorporation. A few weeks ago we had a big champion of incorporation, Mike Maloney, on this program. We went over all the reasons. Did he convince you this is a good idea?
No, not yet, unfortunately.
and
we have a technical problem, but it's a real problem. Mahoney and his group wanted to use the Estero Fire District as the boundaries.
Right.
Well, the Estero Fire District is 56 square miles, about 30 square miles of vacant land, largely out in the DRGR. Those folks who live out there, and there are not a lot of them, don't want to be part of a city, okay? And we have another section of people who are in our Estero community planning boundaries who are north of Estero Parkway. There's 4 communities up there, 1,500 households, who want to be part of Estero. And they are, from a planning perspective, part of Estero. And so they would be denied an opportunity to participate in the straw vote. So at our meeting in March, we discussed that issue, and everybody agreed that unless you had everybody in the pool that was appropriate for that we ought to oppose it. So right now we're on record as opposing the straw vote simply because the boundaries are not appropriate that they're talking about.
Well, couldn't you go, if that's the reason, couldn't you go ahead and take the straw vote and then go to this other area and say, well, how do you feel, and kind of mix the numbers together in an informal basis.
If they came up with a good alternative, you know, I mean, going back in 2005 when Bonita wanted to annex about half of Estero, we did a mail survey to all 5,000 registered voters and used that as a mechanism. Well, there's different ways that you can, if you want to do a straw poll, that you can do a straw poll. It doesn't have to necessarily be on the ballot.
And that 2005 poll said no.
Absolutely, yeah, very strongly.
Yeah.
Over 80%. So in any instance, they may be able to work that out, Jeff. I don't know. At this stage of the game, I haven't heard anything different since they went to the supervisor election to try to determine could she add those areas, and if they had community development districts, she could have, but apparently they don't have CDDs.
But Mr. Maloney would ask you, what's not to like about incorporation, because Estero is big enough to decide its own destiny. It raises a lot of taxes. What is so wrong with the idea of home rule? That's what he says he seeks.
Yeah, no, and we're not opposed to that. We've always taken the position that all of Estero ought to be in there. And the big problem, as you know, has been the 2-mile buffer, where Bonita has insisted that they don't want that 2-mile area up to Williams Road in any incorporation effort. That still hadn't been resolved, and the proposal that Mr. Maloney is promoting includes that area. Now, if this whole thing has to be approved by the Board of County Commissioners, Bonita comes in there again, as they did a few years ago, and opposes it. I doubt that the thing is going to pass. In particular, I doubt if it's going to pass if we're also in opposition because of the boundary question. So it'll unfold some way. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. But
is that the source of the bad blood between Estero and Bonita? And I ask the question in the context of, let's say, Naples and North Naples. No bad blood there, or North Naples and Bonita, everything's okay there, but you go Bonita to Estero and like something goes off the track.
Well, you know, we've tried to heal those wounds, and Mayor Nelson and I have worked very closely together, you know, like on the hospital efforts and stuff like that. I wouldn't say there's really bad blood. I think there's just a difference of opinion.
Does it come down to governance? Oh, that's what it comes down to.
This 2-mile buffer thing is a difference that we just disagree on. It's interesting that, you know, the county is in the process of trying to work out these interlocal boundary agreements. I don't know if you've heard about that, but anyway, Bonita did not try to waive or dilute the referendum requirements on annexation in that area as part of their negotiations. So I think they're being kind of passive about the whole thing, but for the efforts on the part of Vote Estero group, the issue really isn't an issue, you know, at this point in time. And to a degree, we'd like to continue to work with Bonita. And as time goes on, hopefully this whole thing will resolve itself. I don't know how it's going to resolve itself, but it could very well. The longer that they have where they don't annex that territory, the weaker their argument is that they ought to have the right to annex it. Right? I mean, that's the bottom line. And so time is kind of on our side, and it's now been it's going on 6 years since they were able to annex. For 5 years they couldn't annex because their charter prevented it.